One of the first Android systems came out around 2012, and since then the platform has been stacking up apps and tons of games. It's true that many of them ended up getting lost over time, barely updated or poorly optimized for the pocket PCs we use today, but there are some that still hold up really well, and those are the ones we're talking about today. 15 old Android games that are still worth playing in 2025. Drop a like and let's get started. Just by looking at this game, you can already tell it's pretty old. Released in 2016, it still manages to be a very interesting RPG even today. Let's talk about NAROTH. NAROTH is a 3D open-world action RPG played from a first-person perspective specifically developed for Android. You explore the world of NAROTH, a lush plateau with free access to several locations, including villages and dungeons. Your main quest begins with the search for information about your father, leading you into abandoned mines and uncovering a dangerous secret. The game gives you a certain freedom to wander the map however you want, talk to NPCs, explore, or even spend the whole game doing nothing if you feel like it, but it also includes an alchemy system, a wide skill tree, a quest log, auto-mapping more than 30 dungeons, and up to 15 hours of gameplay. Another game that just by looking at it you can tell is really old. I remember playing this one around 2014 or so. Let's talk about MISGUED, Never Back Home. You play as Sylvia, a high school student from Indonesia who finds herself trapped in a mystical world or another dimension without knowing how she got there. But after about 10 minutes of gameplay, you already understand the main objective. Your mission is to find your best friend Yumna, who is also trapped, and together they try to uncover the truth behind the events and the strange place they're stuck in. Unlike many mobile horror games in 2025 that rely on jump scares, this one focuses on story and an atmospheric horror environment. You have to face hostile mystical creatures and actively explore haunted locations to solve puzzles and progress through the story. The game can have multiple endings depending on the choices and behavior of the player. This is one of those classic old Android games that were made simply to entertain the player, unlike many games today. Let's talk about Lords of Discord. Developed by HeroCraft, it's known for its gameplay inspired by classic turn-based strategy titles like Heroes of Might and Magic. The gameplay is very traditional, centered around building an army, exploring maps, and fighting on a grid-based battlefield. The cool part, like I said at the beginning, is how fast and straightforward it is, just like an old school game. There's no long tutorial, no heavy in-app purchases, no energy systems, nothing like that. An important part of the game is building and upgrading your castle, which unlocks new units, structures, and improvements. It's super simple, but still really interesting even today. This game is so old that it has FPS mechanics that don't even exist anymore. Let's talk about local warfare. Its main feature is the focus on LAN multiplayer. In other words, you and your friends can connect to the same Wi-Fi network or hotspot and play together without needing any external internet connection. Back in the day, this type of game was everywhere, but today not so much. The game is also fully playable offline against bots with 5 difficulty levels, which is great for practicing or just playing when there's no connection at all. It's also known for being a lightweight and well-optimized game, designed to run smoothly even on older or modest Android devices. And the gameplay is very similar to Counter-Strike 1.6, fast and fluid even though the graphics aren't anything special. A truly old-school open-world RPG with real freedom. Let's talk about this very interesting game, Kingdom Quest, an open-world RPG that resembles classic PC and console RPGs. You're free to explore a large map, discover new locations, and uncover the story at your own pace. The game has a huge number of main and side quests, over 120 that unfold as you progress. The combat can feel a bit stiff and awkward, but that's just how games from that era were, and you eventually get used to it. It's also great for mobile players who want a full RPG experience without needing a constant internet connection. And on top of that, it's known for being relatively lightweight in file size. FORAGER isn't that old, but it ended up being poorly updated over time, and nowadays it pretty much got lost on the Play Store. Still, it's an incredibly addictive game, so let's talk about it. FORAGER is a 2.5D open world game that's extremely addictive, combining exploration, farming, crafting, and resource management, all with fast and satisfying progression. The game is basically a mix of Terraria, Stardew Valley, and Minecraft. You start on a tiny island with nothing but a pickaxe. Your first goal is simple: gather all the resources around you to gain experience and build your first structures. The core gameplay loop is collecting resources, using them to craft items and buildings, and then spending the gold you earn to buy new land. And this keeps going endlessly. You can build a huge map filled with resources. FORAGER is honestly one of the most addictive games out there. Did you know the first epic Conquest was released in 2016? It's a pretty old game too, and definitely worth playing all of them. So let's talk about it. One of its biggest highlights is the lack of autoplay. You have full control of the character, which means you need real strategy when attacking, dodging, and using skills. The gameplay is fluid and intense. The game is fully playable offline and follows a very fair monetization model without any pay to win. Most items and progression are earned simply by playing and farming. There's also Epic Conquest 2, and honestly I like the second game a lot more in every way. And recently Epic Conquest 10 was released as well. The game was also inspired by other titles, one of them being Ragnarok, and the attribute system is very similar. If you're an old school Android player, you probably played this game at some point in your life. It's really fun and still gets updates to this day. Let's talk about Dan the Man. The game features vibrant pixel art graphics that bring back the feel of classic 90s arcade titles like Double Dragon and Final Fight. Gameplay is its strongest point. You control Dan in a different kind of beat 'em up, taking down every type of enemy that comes your way. The game has a campaign mode or story mode, but it's basically a satire of other games in the genre, which it actually pulls off really well because, let's be honest, nobody really cares about the story in these types of games. It also recently received a very good update. The latest version includes an online co-op mode letting you play with a friend in true classic brawler style. Dan the Man is highly recommended for anyone looking for a fast-paced, fun action game with retro nostalgia and a smooth difficulty curve. This game is really old. I'm talking about a 2014 title, maybe one of the very first RPGs on the Play Store. Let's talk about Crimson Heart. Since it's such an old game, it doesn't have many of the things we see in modern mobile games. For example, there's no autoplay and definitely no gacha. Another thing worth noting is that it's actually pretty difficult for mobile standards. When you die in the game, you lose XP and some money. Combat is in real time, requiring you to use your skills strategically and execute combos properly. Another interesting feature is that you don't control just one hero, and you control a party of 2 characters, which you can build from 4 different classes. And something that's worth mentioning, the game even has a PvP mode that's pretty fun. I just don't know if there are still players online nowadays. This is definitely the lightest game on our list. It's simple in terms of graphics, but without a doubt one of the hardest games here. Let's talk about Clan N. The story takes place in a world where 4 warriors were trained in the ways of the ninja and the sword by a master. Together they form Clan N to face the ancient villain Akuji, who spreads evil across the land. The game has simple controls for punches, kicks, combos, and special abilities, all designed to be responsive on touch screens. The big highlight of Clan N is its multiplayer capability. There are 2 ways you can play. You can connect 2 controllers to the same phone and play as if it were a real console, or try the online mode with rooms for up to 4 players. In short, Clan N is a great beat 'em up. Even though it's old and visually super simple, it's still very interesting. Now let's talk about a really old and very underrated mobile MMORPG on Android, Celtic Heroes. The setting is heavily inspired by Celtic mythology with references to druids, highland warriors, and dark forces. The game features 5 main classes for you to choose from, all pretty standard, except for the druid, which is a very unique hybrid class. There are hundreds of quests to complete, pushing the story forward and rewarding you with experience and loot. The social aspect is strong too. You can chat with other players in real time, form clans, and trade items. And even though it's a very old game released in 2014, it still has a surprisingly strong active player base. Since it's old school, there's no autoplay at all, and I'd even say it can feel challenging for newer mobile players. Celtic Heroes is a complete 3D MMORPG experience on mobile, perfect for anyone who enjoys character progression and that classic old school MMO vibe. I honestly put this game in the genius category. It's incredibly well designed and very old. Let's talk about Candleman. The core element of the gameplay is the protagonist himself and his unique limited resource. You play as a small anthropomorphic candle living on an abandoned ship lost in darkness. Your hero can only burn for a total of 10 seconds in each stage. That burn time is the main mechanic, where you spend most of the level walking in the dark and only light your flame when absolutely necessary. The graphics are praised for their stunning and atmospheric look, using lighting and shadows in a remarkable way to create an immersive environment, even though the visuals are considered old by today's standards. Candleman is a game that blends precision platforming with clever puzzles. Like I said at the start, it's genius. Here's another game I would easily place in the genius category. It's amazing how its main mechanic still hasn't been used by newer games. Let's talk about BATTLEHEART. BATTLEHEART is a tactical action RPG that became a classic on Android and iOS, known for its innovative combat system and real-time team micromanagement gameplay. You don't control the characters using a virtual joystick, instead you draw lines from your character to an enemy to attack or to a teammate to heal or protect them. I think the real magic of BATTLEHEART is in its characters. Even though the game is old and doesn't have many heroes, every one of them is extremely important, and building a solid, perfect team is genuinely challenging. In short, BATTLEHEART is simply brilliant, and even though it's old, it's still one of my favorite games on Android. This one really caught me by surprise, and I had no idea it was this old. Let's talk about this classic called ANIMA RPG. For those who don't know, the game recently got an update in the form of a new title, basically an evolution of ANIMA called Oniro. It's very similar and honestly really good. ANIMA was created by RPG lovers for RPG lovers, aiming to recreate the atmosphere and depth of the dark, gothic titles from the 90s. So the RPG system in ANIMA is one of the strongest aspects of the game. You choose an initial specialization and can merge it with a combat style. For example, melee or archer. There's also an enhanced feature that allows you to combine abilities from different specializations, letting you create unique character builds. The game is also known for being relatively easy to progress in without needing to spend real money. And even with the release of its second version, ANIMA RPG is still an amazing game worth playing. And let's wrap things up with this absolutely beautiful pixel art game, also made quite a long time ago. Let's talk about 99 Vidas. The game is a love letter to classics like Streets of Rage, Final Fight, and Double Dragon, recreating the gameplay, aesthetics, and challenging difficulty from the golden age of arcades and 16-bit consoles. You can choose from 4 main characters, and just like any beat 'em up, there's a co-op mode, though it's a bit harder to play since 99 Vidas is completely offline. The game has a simple progression system, and the combat is simple as well, but it's that kind of simple that just works. In short, 99 Vidas is a fun and challenging beat 'em up made by retro game fans for retro game fans and for fans of the podcast, if you know it. And that's it. These older Android games still hold up amazingly well even in 2025. If you enjoyed the list, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.